talking about video games. Yeah! Hello, video game fans. Welcome to the Donkey Kong Artist Podcast. Thank you for joining us. First off, very nice of you to spend your day with us. I am Patrick Shanley, one of your hosts. Joining me is my best friend, Edmund Arnold. Edmund, how are you doing?
I'm alright. I'm doing fine. How are you? Just a lot of looking at people trying to see if they're replicants or not.
Have you...
I can't trust anyone right now. Just saw Blade Runner. It's just hard.
How much of your weekend has been spent looking at a screen? Because following you on Twitter is just like, I went to this movie and then you went into a dark hole of Nintendo Switch gameplay.
My weekends are always in front of a screen. I'm like a 2-year-old toddler being raised in 2017. I'm always in front of a screen, nonstop. So I went from PlayStation 4 Friday night, I got some Destiny in, then I went straight into my Switch because they released a whole bunch of indie games this week. So I purchased SteamWorld Dig 2, Stardew Valley again. I think it's like my third time purchasing Stardew Valley.
It's a good game. It's worth buying it 3 different times.
It's a fantastic game. That's why I bought it 3 different times. And then I think I bought Thimbleweed Park, which is a fun little adventure game that was released, I think, a couple weeks ago on Switch. So I'm bulking up my Switch library.
That last one sounds like a quaint little neighborhood in, like, London. Come on down to Thimbleweed Park, love.
I actually think you would like this game. It is a adventure point-and-click murder mystery.
Ew.
That is pretty meta. It's pretty funny. Has a lot of jokes in it.
Huh.
I've laughed multiple times. I've only played like a couple of hours, but I'm enjoying it.
Well, I do love murder. It does.
Murder's fun.
I think we've said that before on this podcast.
Yeah, murder's awesome. I love violence.
Well, speaking of violence, our guests this week are involved in a very violent video game that is something I'm excited for, but also something that's causing a bit of controversy, which is in itself causing even more controversy. And that's Wolfenstein II, the new Colossus. We had the stars Brian Bloom, and I'm going to butcher this woman's name, and I apologize, Nina Franoszek, who plays Frau Engel. Brian Bloom, of course, plays B.J. Blazkowicz, who's the main character of the games. He's also the voice behind a lot of really awesome characters in video games and pop culture for a very long time.
Yes, he's actually also the voice of one of my favorite video game characters ever, Varric, from Dragon Age Origins and Dragon Age Inquisition.
Look at
So it was very interesting to hear you interview him. I love this controversy around Wolfenstein, where I believe that people are getting offended because Wolfenstein's Twitter account tweeted something out like "Make Nazis Afraid Again" or something like. What was the exact
line? Was "Make America Nazi Free Again," but it's basically the same message. Yeah.
Number 1, has America ever been Nazi free? Number 2, why is that controversial?
Right. So, oh my gosh, the only controversy I can see is that they use Trump's slogan. You know, so like they're equating Trump to Nazis, which has already happened so many times at this point that like it's not even. Like, this is not anything new that's happened in the last couple months or this year. But then also, like, why is shooting Nazis controversial? Like, you shouldn't... Like, you're shooting Nazis in every Call of Duty game.
Alright, is it Nazis or is it... Yeah, you're right. You're shooting a lot of Nazis in Call of Duty games. But I don't think any marketing scheme has ever, like, taken active, come over here and shoot Nazis. And it seems like America right now is taking a really, like... defend all Nazis at all costs stance right now. Like they really get to say what they want to say also, because this is the land of the free.
Right.
So
I think we're caught in. This is what happens when you have culture wars or when we play identity politics. Is that it opens doors that are really hard to shut or even understand if you're supposed to shut it. You know, if people are free to protest certain things, then people are also free to be Nazis. I despise them, but they're free to do it, I guess. But I don't understand why we'd have a controversy around it. Like, I don't want to get to a point where being anti-Nazi is a controversial statement.
Well, it seems like America's taking a really, like, we're going to be the place to defend Nazis, right? So
yeah, and that is not what I want to be as an American.
Well, I mean, that's what America was set out to be, right? A land of the free, home of the brave. Right. So if I want to go ahead and I want to, you know, tout my white nationalist views, it is my
you
right
personally
as American
do that?
too. No, absolutely not. Personally, I don't want to get into it because I don't want to push people away from the podcast.
Right. Listen, you can get politics literally everywhere else in the world. So.
Everywhere, dude.
This is just a particular thing that is related to a video game. We happen to have the people on today. But it's just, we live in weird times.
I wonder, and this, I'm getting off topic a little bit. We're going to bring it back. I went to see Blade Runner this weekend, right?
Uh-huh.
And I'm looking at the numbers. Blade Runner's doing it's not doing well at all.
For the budget that it is, it was a huge budget.
It's not really doing well at all. So it made me wonder, has politics taken over so much that people can't even see a movie like Blade Runner? Because Blade Runner requires you to actively think during your 2 hours and 45 minutes of sitting there. And are we to the point where we only want to see movies where we have to turn everything off? That's why why these Marvel movies and why these DC movies are making so much money. Because you really don't have to think about them. Right. You're really just going to see a superhero pummel someone.
And you already know the plot and the ending of the film before you even go into the film.
Yeah, so I guess my big question is, and we can get back to Wolfenstein, but is the political landscape affecting basically the consumption of media overall? So is this marketing strategy going to push people away from Wolfenstein? Are people constantly talking about politics and, we're always being engulfed in political just nastiness left and right all the time? Is that pushing people away from going to see movies that require you to think? You know what I'm saying? Like,
absolutely. I also think
we have time to turn off our brains anymore.
Right. I also think it's particularly interesting to see, Wolfenstein hasn't come out yet as of when we're recording this. It comes out on the 17th of October. This is the 8th of October when we're speaking right now. So we'll see how Wolfenstein or how the public accepts or reacts to Wolfenstein's release. Because it's an odd game for many reasons. It's oddly political charged right now. I do not think when they were making it, because it takes so long to make a game, that they'd have any idea when they released it that it would be like this. And then second off, it's also a really old franchise. I mean, Wolfenstein has been around. I think the first game came out in like the 80s in the Wolfenstein franchise.
I believe so, yeah.
So, I mean, it already has brand recognition to it. I mean, then this is the third or fourth in like this new updated Bethesda and Machine Games iteration of Wolfenstein.
Yeah, and it was never controversial before, right?
Right, not ever, right?
I don't think so. And Brian made a really good point, Brian Bloom, in your interview, where he goes, he said Wolfenstein, and we have different opinions on how this game is pronounced, but he basically says Wolfenstein, the Nazis were always the bad guys, right? So why is it controversial all of a sudden, is my big thing. Like, Wolfenstein, since its debut in 1981, you've always been targeting Nazis, killing Nazis in brutal ways, because Wolfenstein has always been a very violent game by its standard compared to standards of other games released at the same time. And Nazis have always notoriously they've always been villains to the American people.
Right.
Growing up, growing up in history class, that was the number one villain that you learn about are Nazis. So where did this change happen? That's my big thing. It's like, where and why are we bringing controversy to a game where this has been the standard since 1981.
Right. It's just madness. I mean, and the last one came out in 2015, 2014, and that one didn't have any controversy. That was 2 years ago. Yeah. Like, what happened in 2 years?
And you were, shredding Nazis up in that game. Like, you were just annihilating Nazis, taking off body parts, and I don't know. Even if it makes me think, if Mafia 3 was released in this type of landscape, would Mafia 3 even be released right now? Because you were essentially killing, clan members and racists. Right. They didn't even have that Nazi identity tag to them, so...
Yeah, because that's more American. Even in this, when you're fighting Nazis in these Wolfenstein games, they're not American Nazis, they're German Nazis, like Nazis, not like neo-Nazis.
I love how we had to distinguish Nazis and fake Nazis and real Nazis.
This isn't your garden variety Nazi.
And that's a good point that you bring up too. I gotta remember. I'm pretty sure that the first game was taking place in. Where was the first game taking place? I think it was in the States. Was it? The New Order, the one that was released in 2014?
Yeah,
I'm not talking about the 1981 one.
Gotcha, so the most recent one.
Yeah, I can't remember. I played the hell out of that game and I beat it, but I can't remember exactly. I think you were in London. I think you were in London, yeah. So essentially you weren't even fighting Nazis in your homeland. You're right. There's that big difference of like fighting real Nazis and fighting neo-Nazis.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. Like, we're laughing because it's just, at least to me, it's stupid. Ridiculous. Yeah, it's just so stupid. It's just madness to me. Regardless of whatever the controversy is, the game looks insane. Like, if you have not watched it, go and watch the trailer of Wolfenstein II: The New Colossus right now. The one from E3 or any of the other ones that have come out. It's just bananas. There's so much crazy stuff going on in these games. It might be the first-person wheelchair segment I've ever seen in a first-person shooter, where you're in a wheelchair shooting Nazis.
Well, that first game not the first game, I need to quit saying the first game. Well, the New Order basically, for me, it kind of revived first-person shooters, because first-person shooters were doing the same thing over and over and over again. You were put in these large-scale situations. Nothing was really focused. And everything was just like these large-scale battles. Wolfenstein really focused everything, and it brought linear, path-focused first-person shooters back, in my opinion. And there hadn't been one done this well in a long, long time. So it makes me happy to see that first-person shooters going back to the old 90s style first-person shooters.
You know, and I'm glad you said that, because lost in all of this controversy talk is actually what the game itself is like. And the game itself is it's the first-person shooter in a while that is focused on a single-player adventure, as opposed to, we tack on a single-player part, but really you're here for the multiplayer. This is the opposite of that. Wolfenstein, you're supposed to be playing the story and playing through it. You know, BioShock is the first one that stands out in my mind when I'm thinking about recent ones in the past.
Yeah, BioShock Infinite was fantastic. That was a really good one. Duke Nukem was terrible. I'm trying to think of other ones. Deus Ex, that was okay, but it was very hard for a lot of people to get into that type of game. It's an RPG, essentially. It's an RPG.
Right.
And I think Wolfenstein was an action, no RPG elements. It's just very action-oriented, built around a very strong story. So it was very nice to get my hand on a game like that again.
Right.
It wasn't multiplayer focused, you know what I mean? You said.
Absolutely. It's also just fun, you know? First-person shooters have gotten, heavy and, especially with Call of Duty games, man. There's sequences where, you're mowing people down in an airport and, you're, really fighting, horrible, depictions of war. Sure, it can be fun, I guess, and there's fun aspects of it, but it's a little bit too real for me sometimes. And this game is it's over the top. It's a video game. It's like a blockbuster. It's fun. It's cool.
Yeah, and we're getting there again, right? We had Wolfenstein. We had Doom, which was a phenomenal first-person shooter as well. We also have, like you said, BioShock Infinite, which I think was released 5 years ago.
God, we're old.
So there's one more that I'm forgetting about that was also pretty big. Our Far Cry series, duh.
Oh yeah, of course. Oh my God.
We have a lot of first-person shooters that are not multiplayer focused, story-based focus that really engrosses you into the world. And I think we need to see more of that rather than these Destinies, these Call of Duties, these Battlefields, these Battlefronts. Did I forget one?
No, I mean,
we have too many of them.
Battle in any random noun, it'll probably be a first-person shooter somewhere.
Battle Quake, Battleborn. Oh, I actually said one. Battle Oasis, Battle Destiny. You can do it in. Oh, gosh.
Battle Lamp, Battle Chair, Battle Pat Sneaker.
Battle Airlines, Battle Underground.
Battle Airlines sounds like an awesome game. I'll totally play that.
Yeah, Battle Airlines sounds dope.
Okay. You just fly around in a Southwest jet and try and shoot down all the JetBlue.
Yeah, awesome. Absolutely.
There you go. Another game idea for you.
That sounds like a great game.
Hot off the press.
I would play that.
Thanks,
it was very awesome to hear Brian Bloom and... Oh, God. Excuse me. Excuse me. I lost her name. My bad.
I can tell it to you, but I feel like...
Hold on. I gotta, look at it. Let me redo this. Okay, yeah, so it was very interesting to hear, Brian Bloom and Nina oh my gosh,
Franoszek.
help me out here. Franoszek?
That's how I say it. I really don't know. I'm not German.
I'm so sorry, Miss Nina. I'm sorry.
I know, she was so kind and came on.
You have to understand that the United States, we don't learn other languages, so our pronunciation we just can't do it. I'm sorry. I apologize. Don't blame me. Blame our education system. So it was actually nice to hear them talk about how much passion they have for these characters, specifically Brian, because he seems like he's like really into playing BJ. And for me, BJ really sold that story. There wouldn't be any New Order without those characters. Those characters were just so good. Just from BJ to Anya to Irene to everything about those characters were fantastic. So I'm excited to see a second one. It'd be nice to see some character development. I hope that we go that route. And I'm excited. I'm just really excited. The New Order was just done so well. Voice acted very well. The story was just very engaging. I'm ready. I'm really ready.
Okay, joining me now are the stars of the upcoming game Wolfenstein II, the new Colossus, Brian Bloom, and Nina Franoszek.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
For having us.
All right, well, first off, we're getting close to the launch, and I always wonder if these are exciting times or these like nerve-wracking times as we get closer and closer to when that game actually is released to the public.
Well, for me, it's always interesting and exciting to know that when people are responding to the work and responding, for all kinds of reasons to what you're doing, particularly when they're the right reasons, when they're enjoying what they're seeing, when they're intrigued, when they're compelled, when they find it provocative, when they think it's going to be awesome and exciting, and maybe you're they're anticipating the product. That always feels good, and there's kind of an energy exchange there, even if it's not direct. But when you get around folks at cons, or even start to see billboards and signs of the game all over the internet and things, it's great. People put in a lot of hard work in many different countries and many different disciplines and areas of specialization, hoping that they would make something awesome that would be entertaining as hell and be fun to play and work and function.
Those are big things.
Our game's going to do all those things, I think.
That's good to hear. You said the word provocative, and I can't think of a better word for a game like this, particularly right now. Just from the little bit that's been seen, it's already sparked a lot of, and controversy isn't the right word, but a lot of reaction definitely from people. Because for whatever reason, Nazism seems to be an issue that has reared its head again. So what is it about this game? Are you wary to step into this type of world? Obviously, we're on the side of anti-Nazism in this game, but also you're dealing with a lot of heavy issues that are particularly relevant today. What's that like to navigate as a performer?
For me, as a performer, as you said there at the end, this is a role that I've been playing for quite some time. Had the privilege and honor of playing for quite some time, and when you're at the front of the tunnel on something like this, I think for a lot of people on this kind of a project that when it started was kind of a reboot of something that was a seminal title, integral to games and a lot of people's history and association with the video game. And that video game offered a really simple promise of a premise that was, you're going to shoot the bad guys. And the way we're going to help kind of move that story along is you're going to associate those bad guys with some bad guys that have existed in history. And that's the fantasy. And in many ways, although it is magnified with the mechanics, systems, features, and incredible narrative and performances and all of this kind of handshake between technology and the elements that have moved gaming forward in the audience, we are still making that. I am still a part of, as far as I know, that premise. And so the place that it may be crossing a moment in time here, I think is maybe, to me, it's the only thing it really has in common with anything in history is that Nazis have existed and they were bad guys, and I hoped and think and thought and still do that we all agree, like you said, that those are the bad guys, and it's we don't really live in a binary world anymore. And Patrick, you know what I think from my standpoint, and it's nice that you can jump behind the barrel and be BJ Blazkowicz, and things can get, although it's complex, it's not complicated. And he can, through his sort of barrel and sensibilities and belt-fed diplomacy, do his best to solve this problem.
Absolutely.
So that, it's awesome to be involved in that. And wherever it crosses with what's happening, that's not what we were making or I was doing when I put the dots on. We're making the fantasy of BJ Blazkowicz and how good it feels to skin up as that guy that's the promise that wasn't kept, which is, no retreat and no surrender. But he doesn't mean that in this kind of macho, two-dimensional, paper tiger kind of a way. I hope we're portraying and conveying a guy that's got a lot more dimension there, and he cares not just because it's cool to shoot bad guys, although that's fun and you can play that way and it's awesome. The game will meet you right there. But there's some really interesting folks and some really interesting problems and conflicts and puzzles to solve. BJ's a broken man inside and out, and he can't do it alone, and he needs a team, and he always has, and that is difficult for him to face. And as he becomes weaker and less from just fighting and putting that mileage on his soul and on his body, trying to keep that promise, he needs more help than ever, and this game really offers, through its character, through its narrative, through its story, a chance to explore that. So that's what I think I was doing.
It certainly sounds like you have a great grip on the character, which, you've been playing him for a few years now, almost the better part of a decade at this point, I suppose. This game is a direct sequel to 2014's The New Order, but the timeline in this series, it gets a little funky because there's a lot of jumping around. Can you kind of explain where we are in the timeline of events for this new upcoming game, the new Colossus?
Well, I think it's fair to say that since you see, and again, if Nick, ring the bell if I'm doing anything wrong here, but I'm pretty sure these elements are out there. And I've heard Jens talk about this. We're picking up where, BJ, kind of said, do it, detonate, hit the spot, and that moment, that incredible climax, which was also the end of the other game. Right. We're really meeting you right there. We all join up again right there, and whoever we all is and what that becomes is, catalyzes in the shape BJ is in and other things, and what the team needs, and what that nuclear moment was or wasn't. All of those elements kind of catalyze this next story. So in many ways, we're literally picking up where we left off.
Gotcha. I like that you said the state that BJ's in, because one of the things that stuck out the most from the trailers is that wheelchair segment that we saw. Can you speak a little bit about that? I think this might be the first time I've ever seen a first-person shooter in a wheelchair.
Me too. That was that's just what a fun kind of level, and what an interesting way to express your a restriction or a problem that you're trying to overcome, but adding it's so difficult to get a player in first person, but this is our challenge, right? To feel particularly physical feelings and sensations, right? That's not where we are, and that's not what's so. there's a chance to for things to break down there. And what's really exciting is that BJ in that wheelchair, it's that approach to combat and that approach to moving through that space and reminding the player of the state that he's in and the state change that he's experienced and what he needs to overcome. And the guns are an aspect of that, but this is a health problem, and this is also a restriction on his movement and other things. So using this setting and moving, kind of combat and puzzle put together in a kind of interesting way, and at the same time expressing that problem that he has physically, which also is breaking him down mentally because he can't. Because he can't be his full expression of himself, right? Kicking ass and taking names, shooting, stabbing, and strangling Nazis, right? So I think all those things seem kind of. I would, as a gamer myself and somebody who works on other games and plays other games and develops other games in front and behind, I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
It blows my mind, and I'm just really impressed and just happy to be some tiny little part of stuff like that.
I've talked to Brian a little bit about his character and about the game, but this is also a kind of a big step up for Frau Engel as well, because you're the main antagonist in this upcoming game. So can you give us a little? We've seen her in past games. Can you give us a little up to date where she is now in the timeline of New Colossus?
Yes, I think this is all about revenge, and BJ, he killed Booby, my boy toy, if you want to call it like that. And I think she is all about revenge and fighting. So, and he's a very strong enemy, and so it's not only chasing him, but there's also a personal fun, I think, for her to chase someone as strong as him. Like a state enemy. I think you can see that in any dictatorship, or they always have that one strong guy they want to track down, and I think that is BJ for her.
Right. We talked a little bit about the context, the socio-political context that this game is being released in, and it seems a particularly timely moment for this game to be released, particularly here in America. But as a German yourself, what's it like to have to... You're not really reliving anything, but this is something that is maybe more personal to someone of a German nationality to deal with issues about Nazism. What's it like to approach that as an actor?
It is personal. It's also personal for me. My father is Jewish and my mother is German, and in the past, there was a German general on the mother's side. And there have been Jews trying to survive in Poland on the father's side, so I was the subject was really close to me. And I had done a lot of research to understand my own past, and I've been to Auschwitz and all that. But I think as an actor, what convinced me was the script, and I really liked the script that I was given, and that character. I think the script was for me very close to *Inglourious Basterds*, and I thought, I'm getting the choice to play the same role like Christoph Waltz in a feminine form with the boy toy. So I think that's interesting. And then you go deeper into history, and I researched a lot, the perpetrators, and I usually don't play them. I'm usually, although I speak German and that's my background, I usually play the resistance, and they always ask me to play French or
Right.
But in a video game, that's the amazing thing. You can alter a face, and that was also an amazing chance to step into a character like that.
I've loved the comparisons to *Inglourious Basterds*, because I'm a big fan of that film, who isn't? It's a great movie. But also because the film's kind of fun, and it has a lot of humor to it, and these games do as well, even though they're dealing with these heavier issues. But these games are... when I told somebody I was talking about this game today, they were like, I love those games, they're bananas, because these games are just over the top and craziness. And I imagine it's fun because the material you get to work with as an actor is so... It seems there's a lot of freedom and a lot of your own personal voice can be injected into these, because they are just big characters who also have Brian mentioned it a little bit. They are more three-dimensional characters, but there seems to be a lot of meat for you guys to work with on these scripts.
But I also think it's the combination. I mean, I have to say that Emily Schreiber did an amazing job. I mean, and Tom Keegan, the director, they get so incredible actors from everywhere, and they really track them down. And you have people who are able to do all the stunts and are really good movie actors. And then I think the freedom that Jens gave us to really develop characters and the rehearsal process brings out a lot. For me, it's sometimes like a theater production, and also I think it has a lot to do with the guys and the actors who did this game. It speaks for them that they give us the freedom and that they let us develop characters, and I brought in a lot of historical background, and they asked Jens, can I try that out? And I had to understand a lot about the technical aspects of games, because what can you do? Because the audience is basically it's an audience of one, and what can you do with the player?
It seems.
But if you have someone, but if you have someone with Brian just to act together, it's so amazing, because I can just feed from everything that he's doing. So I think that was the amazing experience of this particular game.
So that was one of my questions then. Were you guys working together on a stage? The technology has taken off so much for this mocap and like how they record games. So are you guys really acting against each other?
What's amazing about that is, we not only were working together, Tom's, when we were shooting, this is really essentially theater in the round, the way we do it. So all of our takes are essentially masters. If our listeners and audiences, and I'm sure everybody here knows what that is. For those who don't, we're doing the scene straight through all the way, right? And we do it every time, and it is shot from every angle and all at once. And the cinematography sort of happens later. So we really have a chance to harness chemistry, and Tom's approach, as Nina was mentioning, and Jens' approach is, we're doing table reads, and we're discussing, and we're getting together sort of off campus to discuss our characters and talk about our scenes and look for our motivations or intention and see if what people are doing is jiving. And we really worked together in many cases. We didn't just get a call like in the old days and show up, which also rendered some amazing work. And no disrespect, just that we didn't just show up at a booth and go to a microphone and in a vacuum and in a box say lines with really cool voices,
drink some camera
and have people kind of edit those things together and Frankenstein a patchwork quilt. Right. And hardly anybody does that anymore, but it is awesome that we got to do this in, I think, sort of the most contemporary / modern, proverbially, techniques and processes, to put this forward. Mm-hmm. And I think it renders some great, incredibly human results. For all the technology and ones and zeros that games are, we have more opportunity than ever to put the human factor back in, because we're still just people in those black sealskin suits with the dots. We can't draw on costume or set, really. We're holding PVC pipe for guns. We've got the sets are not really sets. We've got some basic doorways and markers for windows or drawers or tables or maps if they're going to be used. Mm-hmm. Outside of that, we're pulling it from each other. They're, all past the camera and the light in your face. So it's a totally trippy thing. So what I'm saying is it's got to come from the inside, and it's also got to come from the chemistry, from the heart of the other people you're working with. And we're working with people like Nina and Tom and the amazing cast we had. A lot of that happened.
I mean, these are full-on productions at this point. I mean, like, these really are performances that you're doing. It's not just voiceover like it used to be. That's why, for me, I'm not sure how closely you were involved with this or how closely you were following it, but the video game actors strike, which just came to an end with the victory for you guys, were you involved in that? Was that any discuss? Because a lot of those things that were being said in that strike, I was shocked by how a lot of these actors have been treated and how they were kind of kept in the dark on a lot of projects. Did you encounter any of those types of things on any projects that you worked on? Did this feel like a victory for you as somebody who works in this industry?
I didn't encounter it. For me, that was the first video game I ever did. And I had no clue how that would work out, and I was amazed. I'm a big fan of this kind of work right now, because of all the aspects, because I believe it needs really good performers, especially of all the things that Brian just said. And I think because I had this amazing experience and I was treated so well and paid well, then I didn't experience the stress and things other people had gone through. Like, I never came to a point where I was physically so exhausted or that my voice was so strained from working on the game. It was the opposite. I felt I was really great. It was like a theater process, and I was not used, and I had the feeling that the people I was working with and been really conscious and cautious about that. So I did not have any of these experiences, but I followed everything the people did at the Screen Actors Guild. I went to some of their events, and but that's the only thing that I can say about that from my personal experience.
I would say, Patrick, that the short answer is from the moment I had the opportunity to work on this side of the voiceover and interactive media, it has been a beautiful experience since the first dance. And I understand that there are some people who wanted to storm the castle. That has not been my experience or my reaction. I'm glad to see it resolved in a quote-unquote victory, and I hope people can get back to work and start making awesome stuff again.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that you guys both had positive experiences, because honestly, your work does resonate with a lot of people, so I'm glad that we can celebrate and that you guys can continue doing it and that you're enjoying what you do. Let's end on a more fun note on the game. Are there any particular scenes that you guys can hint at that you're particularly excited for fans to get their hands on?
All the ones that we're excited for you to get your hands on are the ones we can't even hint at.
No!
But let's say that, I think, I don't want to even put a spoiler on what Nina's about to say, but because I can see her face here, she can't see. Yeah. Listen, there are some epic kind of moments in this thing, and there are some unbelievable there is some incredible face time between these characters that is kind of long overdue, let's say, and they encounter each other, and they tend to resolve conflict through violence, and as Nina said, these are two individuals, along with their respective teams and families, who probably are seeking out each other because they both need not only to cut the head of the snake, but to face the person that's the best kind of counter and opposite that validates their existence. And I know for her, as Nina just said, for Frau Engel, that's incredibly true. For BJ, it's a lot more head of the snake and end the face of this thing. So you're going to have a blast as these two hunt each other, that's for sure.
I also could see that there are comments, on what you can already see on the trailer that is out, what's going on between Frau Engel and her daughter, Alyssa Preston, who plays Sigrun. Well, she's amazing, and she's an opera singer, and it was just so much fun to work with her. But we really got into all that, how would that fat shaming and all these things that I'm doing with her. I already saw that people have a reaction to that, and it was an amazing process. We even went to the theater and had a rehearsal together with Tom and Jens, and really went far. What a narcissistic mother can do to a poor daughter like that, because a narcissist like Engel is, you just see your kid as an extension of yourself. So if she's fat, that means I'm fat. If she's weak, I'm weak. And we went far, and it's, and I also see that it resonates with people because people experience that kind of bullying in their, and that's what I like about this game. It brings in more and more things, in the storytelling, that people can relate to. And it was an amazing experience for us to, in the rehearsal process. And it's, again, also amazing to work with Alyssa because we could go really far with this topic. And, but I also think that an audience relates to that, and I found that interesting in some of the comments. So I don't know if that, if I contribute with this little, or with that to your question.
Oh, no, absolutely. I think you guys have teased it up about as much as you can. I can't wait to get my hands on this game. All right, well, thank you very much, Brian and Nina, for joining me. I really appreciate your time. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. I'm very excited for this game. I cannot wait to see what is in store for everybody who picks it up.
That's great. I feel the exact same way, man. I'm gonna get my copy as soon as I can. If I have to buy it, I'm gonna buy it.
I hope you can at least get a copy. Geez.
I'm sure I will. Everybody's been so kind and generous with that. I'm only playing. Yeah, man, we can't wait. And thanks for your time and being interested in talking to us.
Of course, absolutely. Thank you so much, everybody. It's great to see real actors in video games now. We've been lucky enough to have a couple on the podcast. Between Susan Eisenberg and Phil Lamar, who's been one of my favorite actors almost my entire life. These people, they're incredible. What they do is they're artists, and I'm glad that the strike ended the way it did. But a lot of these people don't get the respect that they deserve for the work that they're doing.
And you really have to understand what they're doing, essentially. They're in a room by themselves, bringing these characters to life that you're basically playing for 20 hours.
Right.
So this isn't like a movie where you're just getting a 2-hour stint of a character. You're playing this character for 20 to 40 hours, and a lot of the times these characters have these one-liners that could either come off extremely well or come off extremely horribly. So I have a lot of respect for for the craft. I have a lot of respect for the craft.
Oh, now you sound Hollywood. The craft. The process.
I pulled out my Hollywood word there.
All right. Well, there are a lot of other games in the gamosphere this week, one of which is Cuphead, which actually came out last week. But you got your hands on it, Eddie. I haven't had a chance to play it yet, and I'm actually kind of afraid to play Cuphead because
you should be afraid.
It's like the hardest game in the world is what everyone's saying.
I wouldn't say the world. It's really about... If you played any Dark Soul game, you should have a good time playing Cuphead because it's really just memorizing the sequences of what these bosses are shooting attacks at you. So once you basically memorize what sequence these bosses are going to be shooting, oh god, I just repeated that twice. So once you memorize that, you'd be fine. I'm not going to sit here and act like it's not frustrating or it's not very intense because it is a very intense game. I was sweating last night.
Do you wear wristbands and a headband?
Yeah, I got my shorts out, so I don't get too hot. I don't want to chafe or anything like that. So.
Do you do those little arm circles that you did in gym school before you pick up the controller?
No, you have to. You don't want to hurt yourself.
That's true. Safety first, kids.
You have to.
Okay.
So.
As somebody, I played a lot of Super Meat Boy, which for me was very difficult and seems it's a much different type of game, but it is that try until you finally get it. Is it similar in difficulty to Super Meat Boy, or is it harder even than that?
Yeah, I would say it's similar to Super. It's a hard game. It's a hard game, and you have to go into it knowing like a Super Meat Head that you're not just gonna fly through this. So if you're the type of person that gets frustrated easily, I wouldn't buy Cuphead. But if you're the type of person that's patient, you like learning mechanics of games, you like beautiful games, you like engaging music to games, I would pick it up. But just know that it is very difficult, but also know that doesn't take away from the game. The game's a 10 out of 10. Like, it's a great, fantastic game. It does everything that video games are supposed to do. And I love the story. The story's very simple. You are essentially, and I come from Nevada, so you sell your soul to the devil.
What does Nevada
during a high-stakes poker game?
There we go.
During a high-stakes poker game. It's just, like, so simple. And it has, like, this overworld map, like Mario, so you go to your different stages, and that's how you select the bosses you want to fight. Everything's kind of, you have, like, a selection of 4 or 5 bosses that you can start from the beginning. I've beat 4 of them. I've gotten all D pluses and C minuses. It's one of those games where I will take a C. You know how some games will grade you based on your performance?
Yeah.
I'm getting nothing but D's and C's, and I'm fine with that.
D's get degrees, Eddie.
D's get degrees. I hate that saying. Don't say that again. So, I like it. But I'm also a person that likes your Dark Souls type games. I enjoyed Bloodborne. I enjoyed Neo that came out, Nioh. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Those are both hard. You have to be smart before you go into it. You have to really study your environments. But it's rewarding once you complete it.
Well, it's sold really well, too, so you're definitely not alone in your liking of the game. Also, I sold over 100,000 copies on Steam already.
Oh, it's on Steam. Okay, because I was about to say, you and I could come out with, like, a side-scrolling adventure on Xbox Small, and it'll probably sell well, because there's nothing to buy on Xbox right now.
Well, that's my next project. It's going to be called Battle Planes, and it's about you being inside of a Southwest plane, and you're trying to...
Battle Airlines. Get it right.
Is that what it was? I'm sorry. Damn it.
Battle Airlines.
That's what you'll be in charge of marketing.
Okay, I got it. Make America's airlines free again? Or will we get in trouble for that? Or make American Airlines
just throw the word Nazi
accessible
in there.
again?
I don't care how you get Nazi in there, just get a Nazi in there.
Making America Airlines accessible for Nazis again.
there we go, perfect. It's 1 million copies sold. This is a really weird game. I don't really understand what they're trying to do.
I forgot what we were talking about. Yeah, Cuphead. It's challenging. I mean, I seem like I'm cold on it, but I'm really not. I'm really just like, if you are a gamer, if you enjoy playing video games,
is it multiplayer?
Yeah.
Like, so I can play like local multiplayer, sit down with somebody else, and we can go through like.
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. Because that's kind of what I need out of like a platforming game. So that's such
to play with someone to carry you.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. I don't judge that. People carry me in Destiny all the time. I don't judge you at all.
Yeah.
So.
I'm amazing at Destiny, so.
Cuphead's the type of game that if you're carrying someone and they mess up a little way, I would kill them.
Yeah,
it's one of those games that's just like the smallest thing. Like, I was playing this game at like 11 o'clock last night, and I would get to like my last like hit on a boss, or like to the very end of the boss and die, and I would just be like, mother effer, and you could just hear me throughout the house. So I had multiple text messages like, is everything okay? I'm like, yes, shut up, everything's fine.
Did someone die?
I'm playing video games. No.
The only issue I have with the game, because it looks amazing, the art is incredible, it seems like it's fun, it's challenging, it pushes you to the limit. This is the one thing I can't get over, is that no one drinks out of a teacup with a straw. Why do they have straws in their head? Is that addressed in the game?
Okay, here we go. We're going to get into this. I recently started drinking my coffee with a straw. It has opened up my eyes to different things.
You're drinking hot coffee with a straw?
I used to hate people that do it, but I've started doing it, and it is something...
I can't think of any hot liquid that I would take in through a straw. I'm trying to think of one hot liquid that I would want in a straw form, shooting into my mouth.
It's not bad, especially like if you're on the road and you don't want to spill it everywhere. You just pop that straw in there and just, gulp it up while you're driving. It's good. It makes it work. And if you're smart about it, you don't burn your mouth either.
You're a monster.
I'm an American.
I want my coffee now, and I want it fast.
I'm a goddamn Steve Jobs. Pretty soon all our coffee cups are going to have goddamn straws on it.
If you heard that Steve Jobs drank coffee with a straw, it would not be surprising at all. You'd probably, yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, he probably does most things with a straw, right?
Well, nowadays.
I mean...
I don't know how much coffee Steve Jobs is drinking. One question I had, because it's just an Xbox exclusive, which is like 2 words that don't even really exist anymore. How does it do as an exclusive? Like, do you think it's going to bump up anything for Xbox at all? Is it that good of a game?
No.
right? Like, it doesn't really feel like it moved the needle as much as, especially for how long we've been waiting for this game.
If Cuphead was released on Switch, it's a console seller, right?
Right.
But this is your Xbox One. This is your Halo. This is your Halo machine, essentially. Mm-hmm. This is your Bungie machine. This is the same machine that's been popping out, like, some of the best-selling AAA games of all time. And you're giving me an indie title that should be $20 at the console seller? Get out of here. Yeah. I love Cuphead. But I think we said it on the last podcast, it's an Xbox Live Arcade title, essentially. Right. It's nothing other than that. And you're going to act like this is a console seller?
How are you Microsoft and you don't have any exclusive? Like, are they just going insane in board meetings, just screaming at people? Like, the day that Horizon Zero Dawn was released, do you think there was just, like, a slate of heart attacks across the Microsoft office?
I don't know. You have Scalebound, which sounded like it was going to be a fantastic little game that was going to be released on Microsoft only, but then they just, gave that up. You have Crackdown 3, which is supposed to be released sometime within the next 20 years. Who knows? Sea of Thieves. Okay. You also have State of Decay 2. Alright. You also have Super Lucky's Tale. I think that comes out next month. Other than that, you got nothing, son. You have nothing. So I'm kind of like... Okay, I'm sorry. Forza came out this week. Forza's a big release for them. Sure. Forza is they're very, very good at what they do. They kind of took over Gran Turismo, and we have to applaud Microsoft for that. But other than that, they got nothing, man. Yeah. They really got nothing.
They just don't, and none of those games that you said, Forza included, even though I do agree with you, they're good games, racing games are great, they have a crowd for them. But they're not those benchmark series that you want, you know? Like, this is not going to move the needle on, like, a cultural level. You know, it's not some big event like a Halo is, or like Zelda was when it was released, or like even Horizon, which was like a brand new game out of nowhere, like no prior games to it. And it's still, like, I can mention it to people who barely tangentially know video games, and they're like, oh yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah. I mean, like, so this year, has Microsoft, I don't think Microsoft has released any exclusive. Microsoft has Forza Motorsport 5, Halo, the Rare Replay, I think that was a Microsoft exclusive. I think Rise, Son of Rome was a Microsoft exclusive. I could be wrong on that, because I think it might have been released for PC. And then maybe Sunset Overdrive. So since this console has, how do you say that? Console life has started. Since this console life has started, whatever you want to say it, they've only had like 5 games that have been exclusive, and none of those have really shaken the charts at all.
Yeah.
So at this point, what is Xbox doing?
Releasing a slightly bumped up version of what they already have.
But why?
That's my question. I wish I knew. Why am I going to buy something if I don't have games to play on it?
So I can play Sunset Overdrive?
It's
what's going on, Microsoft? I was like your number one supporter all these years. Like, what's going on? You're
Microsoft. You know, like, you're one of the biggest in the game. Like, how are you this far behind?
I don't know. I don't know what's going on, and it's like frustrating me because coming into this cycle of this cycle of generations. I think I said that right. I don't know how to say this. I don't know why I can't say this right. I was like really looking forward to Xbox, but that list that I just read off compared to PlayStation's exclusives. PlayStation, since it came, PlayStation 4 had Infamous Second Son, which I thought was an okay game. What else did they have? Like Neo, I think is a PlayStation exclusive. The Last Guardian. Until Dawn was a PlayStation exclusive. Bloodborne was a PlayStation exclusive. Horizon, then Uncharted 4. So those are like really big games. And Uncharted 4 and Horizon themselves could beat any game that came out on Xbox.
Easily, right?
So, and I'm not trying to set up this whole like PlayStation versus Xbox because I hate that like division, but still, like, oh my God, what's going on? I'm like, what is going on?
Not only that, so yeah, I mean, there's all of that, but then also all the big games. Then you have to factor this in, I guess, right? So if I walk into a store and I'm like, what do I want to buy? Do I want to buy a PS4? Or do I want to buy an Xbox One? Well, I can buy the PS4 and get all those games, plus all the big games that are coming out because they release them on both systems. So, like, why in the world would I buy an Xbox then?
No, you better off buying a Switch. Because at least with Switch, their exclusives are Splatoon, Zelda, which is the game of the year,
right?
Mario Odyssey. Then you have all these indies that you can just pick up and go. I would probably recommend you buying a Switch over Microsoft Xbox right now. So, Pat,
yes,
getting to the end of the podcast again.
Aw.
I haven't asked you in a couple of weeks because I don't care, because you play games like 20 years old. What are you playing? Are you playing anything from this decade?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I am. I'm playing Marvel vs. Capcom.
No, you're not!
I am playing Marvel vs. Capcom.
You're
Thank you
playing
very
a game
much.
that I'm not playing. Why didn't we open up with this? This was like a big release last week.
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm also just surprised I'm playing anything that you're not playing.
All right, come on. Give me the review. What's up with Marvel vs. Capcom?
Marvel vs. Capcom is like... I'm afraid that I'm going to have a seizure when I play it, and there's also a warning as soon as it starts that you might have a seizure. I don't have seizures. I'm not prone to it. I don't have epilepsy, but there's so much going on the screen all the time that like I'm genuinely concerned for my health.
So it's a story, right?
Yes. I mean...
You playing the story mode?
I have a little bit. I haven't gone all the way through it. But I mean, it's a story mode for like a fighting game. So.
Did you play Injustice 2?
I did not, no.
Okay, because I was going to ask, how does it compare to Injustice 2?
I only know from talking to the people that we've talked to about it and from talking to you that Injustice 2 kind of had a very strong storyline for a fighting game. This is not that way. That doesn't make it a worse game. It's just, don't play this game for the story.
Okay. So, I've seen a lot of people complain about it. And this is coming from someone who does it. You don't have an extensive, I'm not trying to step on your toes, because you and I don't have extensive fighting game experiences. We talked about it in the previous podcast.
How dare you?
So, as someone going into it who doesn't play a lot of fighting games, how does it... Is it something that you can get your hands on? Is it too overwhelming? Do you find yourself having to go back to menus or memorize buttons a lot? How does it stack up?
I think you can play it either way. I mean, like, there's people who are way better than me who will, learn the combos and learn the special moves, but you can just hop into it and smash buttons.
Okay.
The same way you would when, like, you had a Super Nintendo and you were playing Mortal Kombat. Like, you can just pick it up and start playing. And it is pretty intuitive. I mean, like, it gives you a little rundown right before you start playing, how to switch in your characters as they're going. Like, it's not super complicated. It can be incredibly complicated. It's a fighting game, and there are people who can master it. But as far as for me right now, I just jumped in and started smashing the X button as much as possible with Spider-Man.
Okay. But, like, art style, I've heard a lot of people complain about the art style, which is kind of surprising.
That's
to me.
astonishing.
How do you feel about it?
I think the art style is beautiful. I also think that it leans... It's the Marvel comic books. It's not the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And it looks a lot like the Marvel comic books. The heroes look like the comic books.
Okay.
I like the cell shading that they do. It has that cool, like, matte, like, 2D, 3D combo thing going on. It's a beautiful game, and the colors are just astonishing. Like, I'm afraid it's going to blow out my TV because there's too many colors. Yeah.
And you've been playing it on Xbox?
I have been, yeah.
Okay, and it's been, like you said, it's been a pretty easy game for you to get your hands on. Are you, like, learning some more combos, or are you just hitting X over and over again?
Learning is, like... That's being way too kind to what I do. I smash a bunch of buttons. Every once in a while, something amazing will happen on the screen. I'll be like, oh my god, how did I do that? And then I'll try for the rest of the fight to try and figure out what I just did and end up losing.
So
I don't have, like, a notebook with, like, crib notes.
Well, that's how I approach fighting games, which is kind of sad.
Yeah, well,
I don't have, like, notes out, but, like, I'm constantly checking back into, like, trying to memorize these
how did I do
button combos. Yeah, absolutely, but it gets to the point where it's just like, I don't want to do this. This is cool. That's awesome. I will not pick it up.
Oh, all right.
But I look forward to... Yeah, it's just like, there's so many fighting games right now.
Yeah, I feel you. It's kind of been... We've said this multiple times. It was sort of like the year of fighting games, so...
Yeah, and it's like, I already picked up Injustice 2. I already picked up Absolver. I have, like, such a, like, multitude of fighting games right now. I just don't really... And I love me some Marvel. Don't get me wrong. I love me some Capcom.
Look, I'm not going to say I don't recommend it, because, like, I do, especially if you like these games. Like, I've enjoyed the game, and I think it plays really well, and it's beautiful. But at the same time, as somebody who's not a huge fighting game fan in the first place, like, you don't need to spend your money on this game.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you very much, everybody, for listening. Join us next week. I don't think we have a guest lined up yet, but that might change. I want to give another big thank you to the stars of Wolfenstein II, the new Colossus, Brian Bloom, and Nina Franoszek, for joining us. It was a very great conversation. I'm looking forward to the game. You can pick that up on October 17th for PS4, Xbox One, and for PC. I also want to thank you, Edmund, for talking to me today.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I think we are all converted, so you should be able to find us on the Donkey Kong Kings on SoundCloud.
The Donkey Kong Kings?
iTunes. Yeah, Donkey Kong King. Donkey Kong Artist, my bad. Why do I for some reason, I keep thinking our name is Donkey Kong Kings. I don't know why.
I kind of like that, too, but...
I think it's because I'm so arrogant that I think that we're kings, because we're so good at everything that we do.
That makes sense.
But, sorry, we have converted everything to the Donkey Kong Artist. Donkey Kong Artist, Donkey Kong, Konartists. Hopefully I spelled everything right. We should have a Gmail coming up pretty soon if you need to email us with any questions, clarifications, corrections, or if you just want to call me a bad name, go ahead.
It's fun. I do it often. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening. We will see you next week. We love you. Goodbye.
Love you. Bye-bye. Buy a Switch, you dummies.
Talking about video